Welcome to Beyond Hormones, the Business of Wellness, the podcast for hormone and functional medicine providers who want a thriving, predictably profitable practice and maybe a little less stress along the way. Hi, I'm your host, Jody Layne, and I've worked with lots of clinics in marketing, sales, and business development, and I have seen what works and what doesn't. And here's what I believe. Hormone and wellness care should be available to everyone who wants it. And while providers know the medicine, many struggle with the business side of their cash practice. And that's where I come in. See, this podcast is here to share real strategies, real stories, things you can implement in your practice right away. So I am so glad you're here. Come on, let's go. You hear from providers on this podcast all the time, doctors and nurse practitioners, clinic owners who are changing the way healthcare is delivered. But today's guest brings a perspective we don't talk about nearly enough. She is a patient who spent decades navigating the sick care system, searching for answers, questioning protocols, and ultimately finding hope through functional and hormone-based care. And she is also a professional ghostwriter who helps experts, including healthcare providers, turn their expertise and personal stories into books that build credibility, trust, and demand. In this episode, I am so proud to be joined by my friend Daria Anne, author of My Escape from the Sick Care System and owner of True Voice Writing Services. Daria shares what patients are really thinking, why trust is so fragile in today's healthcare environment, and how authoring a book can become one of the most powerful authority-building tools for a modern hormone or functional medicine practice. This conversation today is part patient story, part business strategy. And if you want to stand out in a crowded wellness space, then I request that you listen very closely. Okay, here we go. So welcome, Daria Anne, to the Beyond Hormones podcast. I am very, very excited. You're a different kind of guest than we've had before because you're not a provider, you are a patient as well as a writer. So thank you for agreeing to be on the show.
Oh, thank you, Jody. It's my pleasure to be here.
So we have a lot to talk about, but I want to first just start with, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see Daria Anne's background, and I'm holding up the book. She has recently written a book called My Escape from the Sick Care System. And I was just telling her before we started that I'm not a reader. And yet I read the entire book in one sitting because I could not stop. My husband we were on vacation. He was like, come on, let's go. Let's go to the bar. And I'm like, no, not until I finish this book. So I'm really excited to dive in. Why don't you start by just sharing with a little bit about yourself, what you do as a career, and then, why did you write this book?
Sure. Wow. Okay. Well, just to give a little background, I am the daughter of a general and vascular surgeon, the youngest of 5 kids. I grew up outside of Philly, and I did grow up with an appreciation for the medical profession, being around my dad and his colleagues. So I just wanted to get that out there because my book was not about hating on doctors. But I wrote the book because I really wanted to help people based on my own experience, because my life has been a journey of just constantly searching for answers and not giving up and just persisting and not realizing until a certain point that it was really the system. It wasn't the doctor so much. It was the system that they came from, and perhaps maybe their reluctance to expand their education, because I do admire doctors who are willing to do that. But I thought it was important just to share my story because, as I suspected, the more I talk to people who've read my book, the more I hear, oh my God, I have an autoimmune condition. Oh my God, I know 5 people who have an autoimmune condition. So I knew that people were out there suffering and maybe just didn't know where to turn. And let's face it, I love the internet, but there's a lot of noise out there. And I think people are not sure who to trust. Even when you have wonderful practitioners out there who are hosting podcasts, sharing information, sharing blogs, I think people are still reluctant because we're all sort of stuck. Well, not all of us, but most people are stuck on this insurance hamster wheel where you're paying so much in premiums. You don't want to pay more than your $20 copay, but yet you're not getting the answers you need. So I kind of wrote it patient to patient. Here I am, an informed patient. I solved my problem. Here's what I did. And you can do it too. And I'm going to give you the tools you need to do your own research and find the right person for you.
Yeah, I love that. So, I used to work in a clinic, and my heart always broke for those patients that sat down in one of our providers' chairs and they were sharing all this information that was like a beacon of light. It was finally giving them hope. And then they'd come back for the next appointment almost in tears because their traditional doctor, who they've been seeing for 20, 25 years and delivered their kids and like they really trusted, was saying, no, 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 what you just heard is not true. It's a quack. And now you don't know who to believe. And so I think that was one of the things that was so compelling about reading your book. It wasn't that you were teaching from a medical experience, you were teaching from personal experience. You were guiding us as patients, like you said, patient, to really understand that there is a lot of information out there and you were relentless to find out what the truth was. What do you think propelled you to do that?
I think I was just frustrated. I mean, I just couldn't get answers. I mean, it started when I was 19. So I had irregular periods since I was 16. I'd started when I was 11. And I was all excited because I went to my dad's colleague. I insisted it had to be a woman. I tell this story in the book. And she was lovely, an absolutely lovely woman. And I thought, I'm going to go in here. She's going to tell me what's wrong and we're going to get to the bottom of it and we're going to resolve it. And instead, she hands me these synthetic hormones. And I did not like the word synthetic. I mean, even at that age, I always leaned toward more holistic solutions for things. And she said, this is going to create a false scenario in your body and trick your body into thinking it's having a period. And I looked at her and I was like, well, what's the point of that? Like, what is going on? She had no answers for me except it's just what we do. That was the answer.
My heart sank when I read that line. When she said, I really don't know, I don't have an answer. This is just what we do. And how many other issues do we as human beings deal with? We go to the doctor and that is the answer.
Yep. Or you're just getting older. Or
Yes.
eat less and move more. Love that one.
Yeah.
With no concept of hormones and how what you eat affects them. It's crazy. So yeah, I was hoping that by telling my story, and as you said, it's part memoir, but also part guidebook. There's a CTA at the end of every chapter because I want people to take action. I want them to be inspired to think, wow, I really can resolve my problem because we're all getting older, but there are things that are not inevitable. There are things that we can fix and change. And that's one thing I love about functional medicine. It's like, I'm amazed that even in your 50s, 60s, and older, you can still change things.
Right.
So it's very hopeful.
So you had to do a lot of research to not just understand what was available in terms of your healthcare, but also to find the providers that you connected with that were guiding you in the right way. What did you do to do that research so that, the people that are listening that might be interested in doing it for themselves?
Yeah, I started, I went online and I think I looked up thyroid specialists and
Mhm.
I started finding people. And actually, well, one of them was the first one I found. And this is really an important point, too. I mean, I shared a bad experience I had in the book because everyone's human, right? There's good and bad humans in every profession. And maybe not necessarily even good and bad. There's humans that we relate to and we don't relate to. Maybe
Right.
they are a great practitioner, but that you don't connect with them. So I wanted to share this story. I had a bad experience, but I knew that I was on the right track. So, I saw this doctor in Central Florida. It was the right diagnosis. It was the right call. I finally understood that I had Hashimoto's. And part of the problem, Jody, too, I have to back up for a minute and say with me is like the symptoms didn't all show up at the same time and they weren't all severe. So this went on for years and I was in that trap. Well, maybe I guess I'm just getting older. This is what happened. I remember one day I was brushing my hair and I tilted my head and there was like all this space between my hair strands. And I was like, oh my God, my hair's thinning. So it wasn't coming out in clumps in my hairbrush. And it wasn't until I brushed my hair that I realized it. So a lot of my symptoms were subtle. So it took me a long time. But again, getting back to my experience with this practitioner, I got the right diagnosis, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, actually was put on the right protocol, but he was so cold and detached. And I ended up having a thyroid storm, not because of anything this doctor did. I think it might have been a compounding pharmacy mistake looking back. I don't know. I wound up with an 8-day uninsured hospital stay simply because I think I was taking more than I needed. And I'm the kind of person like I'm by the book. I'm not going to mess around with
Right.
taking more than I should of any kind of prescription. And that's another point I want to make too quickly while I'm thinking of it. When I was researching keywords like for my book title on Amazon, natural healing was one of them. And I said, I'm not putting that in my subtitle because sometimes we need to take prescriptions. I'm not totally against that either. And that's another thing I wanted people to understand. This isn't about hating on all prescriptions or all doctors. For example, I take low dose naltrexone. It balances the immune system. It actually does that. My antibodies have come way down as a result of using that, plus a combination of other things that I do. Even thyroid, you need a prescription for. So
Right.
it's not that prescriptions are bad. It's just that you want them to actually address the root problem.
Absolutely.
So
I think that's the point that for these wellness providers is they are giving protocols to solve the root cause of a problem, not to mask a symptom, which in traditional healthcare and your story, a lot of things you were told to do at the early stages were all about just resolving your symptoms. And who knows
right.
what other issues would have come up if you would have engaged in those things. Yeah.
Exactly. And, and it's kind of funny because in my book too, I talk about unexpected messengers. So it was 2002. And ironically, the same year that Flawed Women study came out that freaked everybody out about hormones, I bump into the speaker at a networking group one night and the topic of her presentation was natural progesterone. And that's really when I think the first light bulb regarding functional medicine and hormones went off. She was talking about how natural progesterone can regulate your periods. At that time, I was still struggling because I was refusing to take the pill. And that was everybody's answer for
Right.
everything. And I thought, I'm not taking it. I'm going to find another way. I couldn't believe this woman was talking about Dr. John R. Lee, who was pioneer in bioidentical hormones. And she blew my mind. Now, granted, she was there to sell a product and it was part of a
Sure.
network marketing company, but I got the information I needed. I did discover natural progesterone cream. And at that particular time, this was over the counter. It was made from yams. And now I take oral progesterone. It's a lot different. However, I did 2 pumps transdermal, 2 pumps in the morning, 2 pumps at night. Within a couple of months, my periods were finally regular. Since I was 16 when they went crazy, I was around my early 30s at that time, about 31, 32.
What's crazy to me is that the traditional solution is more estrogen, and yet the
Right.
actual solution was more progesterone.
Correct. Yes. And Jody, and I think I talk about this in the book too. I was grateful. And at the same time, I was really angry because I
Yeah.
thought, why doesn't conventional medicine know about this? This was so simple. I could have resolved this problem at the age of 19 when I finally went to somebody to fix it. And they're telling me the only solution is synthetic hormones because they want my body to believe it's having a period. Like
Yeah.
it
It's kind
makes
of
no
crazy.
sense. But that was really like my first introduction into bioidentical hormones was the natural progesterone cream.
Was this your first autobiographical book that you've written?
Yes. I'm going to say yes. I wrote a fictional, sort of I'll call it fiction. It was based on real life. My first book, Water Signs, a story of
Okay.
love and renewal, but I totally fictionalized it. I mean, it was based on someone I knew, a relationship that I had, and I kind of fictionalized it from there. So yeah, this is really the first honest, autobiographical, first person account.
And how
Yeah.
was that for you? I mean, you delved into some things or experiences you had over your life that weren't great. I mean, did it bring up
Yeah.
those feelings again, or how did that feel?
I think that was okay because I've had a really strong spiritual practice all these years, like through Unity Church and just my own little prayer and journaling and
Yeah.
affirmations. I think I was at a point where I was finally strong enough to really write about it. The only thing that gave me a little bit of pause was like my family, because my mom and dad obviously were there for all of this and knew that it had happened. But I was wondering how it would affect them. And they were all so proud of me for writing it. And in fact, my sister felt bad because she's like, I didn't know you went through all this stuff. And I was like, Carolyn, you were raising kids. She was a full-time attorney with 2 kids. I didn't, it was just, I didn't always share things with people either. I mean, that was the only thing that gave me a little bit of pause. But then once I got out there and my mom read it and other family members, they were really proud of me.
That's
And they
awesome.
understood what I was trying to do as far as helping other people. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
So let's dive into a little bit about you and your career. So obviously, this is an autobiographical book, and
mhm.
you have other books coming. You refer to a number of the books that you're planning to write, and I can't wait to
Yes.
read those. But you also do ghostwriting for other people. Can you share what that's a little bit about?
Sure. Yeah, I love ghostwriting. And I always say the number one quality of a ghostwriter is a genuine interest in other people, which I certainly do have. I'm fascinated by other people's stories. And the way I kind of stumbled into it was really interesting too. The first book I mentioned, Water Signs, a friend of mine at the time had a little book signing party for me. And this gentleman walked in, and my gosh, he was one of those people that just like filled the room with his energy. He was real high energy, bubbly, talking to everybody. And he says to me, I want to buy your book. And I'm like, this is a chick book. You're not going to like it. He's like, no, no, no. I believe in supporting entrepreneurs. And he's from Israel. His name is Shlomo, and he won't mind me using his name on the air. And then about a year later, he called me up and he's like, I've been wanting to go to write this book, and you're the only person who can help me. And I'm like, what? At the time, I'd never ghostwritten a book for anybody. Anyway, it turned out to be a great experience. I loved it. His concepts were really interesting. The book is called Steps to Salvation. That's online still to this day. But that experience kind of opened the way for me to work with other people because I thought, wow, if I could write this book for him, and his book was I want to say it was like historical fiction, fantasy. It was futuristic. I mean, it was like a little challenging for me to write, but I thought if I could do that, I can write other books for other people. And so what I really like to do is I start by asking, now because of my marketing background, I start by asking, what are your goals for this book? I mainly work with professionals who want to leverage a book to market something else, maybe a course that they've created or one-on-one coaching or more speaking engagements, TED Talks, whatever their goals are. I always ask that. I try to make it as non-intrusive as I can, but I still need to get to know you. So we schedule some calls and we do some interviews where I kind of get to know your story, the purpose of your book, and what your goals are. Then I create an outline, and then we kind of go from there. I'll start writing it, and then I'll ask the person, maybe, here's a couple chapters, review them, mark them up, let me know what you think. So let me know if I'm on the right track. And then again, it depends on the person, how involved they want to be, but I can just keep going and we can work that way, or we can get on weekly calls. I try to make it as easy as possible because the whole purpose of ghostwriting for busy professionals is to take this off their plate.
Right.
So, yeah, and I've written books. I mean, I ghostwrote a book for an orthopedic surgeon in Miami who's really trying to, I mean, God bless him, he's fighting the good fight, trying to improve healthcare and that whole fight. And it's tough, but that book is called Healthcare from the Trenches.
Okay.
And so, yeah, and so it was fun. And when I met him, I mean, just from seeing my own father's struggles with the insurance system, which are so much worse now, I said to him, oh my gosh, I have to write your book. I have to help you write your book. You know, it really depends on the person and how much, I mean, I do need them to be involved in the sense of, I have to have at least a few calls in the beginning because I need to get to know you. I want to write in your voice. When we're done, your book should sound like you. And I also asked them, you know, look, I can stay in the background. I mean, I had a client once who really wanted my name on the book. And I said, okay, you know, but most clients don't, but I leave that up to them also. I believe that book was for a fire lieutenant in Brevard County. Very powerful book he wanted to talk about his experiences of how PTSD affects first responders, because most people don't think of it in terms of first responders. We think of it in terms of the military. So To Guard My Every Neighbor, that was that book. So
I'm impressed how you remember all the names of all these books. So we actually worked together on a book that you ghostwrote. The doctor that I was working for in Orlando. I mean, you just explained beautifully your entire process. But some of these books, you've got to really just research too.
Sure.
You know, what is that like? Like when you're picking up a topic that you don't know anything about, you know, how do you do the research?
Sure. Well, what helped me with that particular book, though, was I already knew about progesterone cream. So I was and I already knew about Dr. John Lee. So I was sort of ahead of the game on that aspect. But I still went online and I researched John Lee and I looked things up. And yeah, that's what I do. I try to find out as much as I can about the person who wants me to write the book first, to, like I said, and their purpose behind it. And then, yeah, I will do research because a lot of times I'll have clients too, even when I'm editing, they'll cite some statistic and they won't have any source in there. And I'm like, you can't just put something out there and not back it up.
It feels like you can.
Yeah, right. I know, right. Which presents a golden opportunity for people like us to do things the right way.
Yes.
But yeah, so I often find that I have to look up their sources that they're putting in the book and make sure. In fact, I had a client recently where I was like, I can't find any statistic for this. Like, how about we try this? I found something else that sort of supported her premise. And so we went in that direction. So yeah, I guess it depends. I mean, if I don't really know anything about the topic, yeah, there's some research involved. But also I learn from the person who's writing the book too, because I'll ask them, you know, about their profession and what they see. So for example, if we're talking about a hormone doctor or functional medicine practitioner, like most patients who come to you, what do you see the most? Like, what problems do you see the most? What questions are people asking? What complaints are they having? You know, what symptoms? What things are you advising them to do that are helping? Like, start asking yourself those questions. And I certainly ask them if I'm ghostwriting their book to kind of narrow in, because sometimes people, it's funny, my friend Michelle Culp, who's a book publicist, says people either have too many ideas or no ideas, you know, and there's like no in between. So for somebody that's not sure where to start, I would start prompting them with those questions.
Gotcha. So one of the things we do here at AMP and on this podcast as well is we help providers grow their business. And it feels like lately everybody has a book. I wrote a book. It's really small, but I wrote one too. Like everybody feels like they have to write a book. So what is the benefit these days to having a published book? And why would you recommend that somebody do one?
Sure. And I know it feels like everybody is writing a book. I mean, I feel that way too, but believe it or not, only 5% of people who say they want to write a book actually do it.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
No, it's true.
Okay.
Yeah. And a book is really, it's the perfect example of authority marketing.
Mm.
I mean, I could say the same about blogs too, but the thing with the book is that it's an evergreen brand asset that is going to sit on somebody's shelf, and maybe they don't need your services right in that moment when they read it. Maybe it's a year or two later. But the thing is, people respect that you took the time to actually write and publish a book. So if it comes down to you and your competitor and you've written a book, most likely they're going to choose you, even though maybe you wrote the same in terms of expertise and knowledge.
Right.
It's just taking that extra step in the mind of your client. And, so you have to think about your profession and what you can do to stand out. I mean, like I said before, there's so much noise out there, a
Yeah.
lot of internet noise and people not sure where to turn. And there's a lot of wonderful podcasts. I listed several of them that I listened to in my book. But there's something about taking the time to write a book, and nobody has to know if you hire a ghostwriter, but people are impressed with that. And when you do it the right way and you have a professional cover design, it still does work, but you have to be very intentional, work with the right people, and really understand what your goals are
Yeah.
too. And have a CTA for that person. Like I
Right.
said, some people I work with, they have a course that they want to promote, or they want to do more one-on-one coaching or get more speaking engagements. Whatever it is, you have to start with your goal in mind and then really use the book to leverage that. And then the other thing, and this applies certainly to functional practitioners, like you could write a series of books. I mean, let's just take the thyroid as an example. If you're a thyroid specialist, the first book could be about how the thyroid is the master gland and controls everything from your heartbeat to your body temperature to digestion. Because I did not know all of these things about the thyroid until I discovered functional medicine. But then you can write follow-up books. I mean, maybe one could be how testosterone is so important for women. Like, how many women even know that?
Yeah.
We always think of it as a male hormone. There's so many ways to go. I mean, with hormones, you could really kind of zone in on each one. You could write a book geared towards women or towards men, whatever you're doing in your practice.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, CTA is a call to action. So
Yeah.
us marketers, we take it for granted. Everyone knows marketing stuff, but I wanted to put that
Yeah.
out. I really do agree that, especially in this space of the hormone space, when you and I first were working together back in like 2015, 2017, there weren't that many hormone providers.
Right.
Now they're everywhere. And
Yes.
functional medicine is becoming more mainstream. Hormones are becoming more mainstream. And we help our doctors try to have a unique edge. And so it's not just a book anymore. It's in that book. What is it about you that makes you unique that patients should come to you over the guy or the girl down the street? And, working with someone like you who is an experienced ghostwriter who understands the industry absolutely could help identify what that is. Because I mean, I have this bookshelf right here. All of these books that you see, and there's more behind, they're all from conferences. And they're all keynote speakers who gave their book away. You know how many I've read? Just the one.
Oh,
The one
well.
here from Daria Anne.
Yeah, well,
You've got to have a compelling title and a compelling subject
yes.
matter.
Yes. And the one thing I've learned too, Jody, keywords, let's get into another marketing thing,
Yeah.
right? Keywords for Google are not the same as keywords for Amazon book titles.
Mm.
So there's a tool that I use. It's called Publisher Rocket. I'm happy to share that with people. That really helps you find the keywords to incorporate in your title and subtitle so that when people go on Amazon, which is the world's largest bookstore, and they type in those search terms, that your book pops up. And I learned all this from Michelle Culp, who's the founder of the best-selling author program. But it's really true. I mean, there has to be a strategy behind it. You could write the greatest book in the world, and if nobody can find it, what's the point?
Absolutely.
So, the marketing aspect does come in, the digital marketing aspect with knowing what keywords to use. And, in my case, PCOS was a keyword. It also happens to be relevant because I went through that. I had that.
Right.
Hashimoto's was a keyword. And as I found, lots of people are dealing with these issues. And so that was one reason why they're such highly used terms. I stayed away from natural healing simply because I didn't want people to equate that with prescriptions are bad.
Right.
All prescriptions are bad.
And it's actually not natural. It's holistic, but not
exactly
necessarily natural. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because I believe even liothyronine is, Dr. Amy calls it biosynth. Like it's made in a lab, but it's very similar. And I take it without a problem. I mean, I'm also on NP thyroid, which, is natural desiccated thyroid from pigs, but I'm also on liothyronine. I've not had an issue with it.
Yeah.
Same thing with low dose naltrexone. And it was funny. I was in a situation with a conventional doctor that was a family friend several years ago. And we were having a conversation. And when I mentioned low dose naltrexone, he's like, oh, naltrexone, that's what they give people with addictions. And I'm like, no, it's low dose naltrexone.
Right.
And he just wasn't getting it, anyway. So it just, I don't know why I just thought of that. But it's just in lower doses, it
Right.
balances the immune system. And really, Hashimoto's is an autoimmune problem.
Yeah, a
It's
lot
not
of
really a
the
problem with your
providers that
thyroid.
we work with do low dose naltrexone. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
let's move into a very hot topic that I think the listeners have got to understand your perspective. So AI. Now you can go to Gemini, ChatGPT, all these places, and you can feed it some information and it can spit out a very lengthy, and I'm sure there are people that are listening that want to write a book that will go that route. What are some of the pros and the cons to utilize AI when writing a book?
Well, especially in the health field, people don't want to, generic content's just not going to work. I mean, it just sounds robotic. I mean, ChatGPT especially, I mean, I could look at something right away and be like, oh my God. And it's not just the M dashes. I know everybody's
Yeah,
very
right.
addicted to the M dashes, but I mean, it's sentence structures, it's overused words, and everybody starts to sound the same. And so the thing with in the functional medicine, hormone space, the pain to purpose story is very compelling. That's why I put that in my book, which I also made a guide. So people want to see that you can share your own story because that makes you relatable, that makes you trustworthy. This is an example of authority marketing too. Like I've been here, I've done this. And I don't know if you've ever read Building a Story Brand by Donald
Yeah.
Miller. I love that. So I want
Yeah.
people to know that when you write the book, I tell this to my clients now, you are the guide. You're not the hero of the story. You are the wise guide that your reader is looking for to solve their problem. So by sharing your pain to purpose story and how you overcame it, and hey, I had this problem, I discovered functional medicine, I went back to school to learn how to help patients in this way, that has so much credibility.
Yeah.
And I've even listened to podcasts that you've done with these providers that are very inspiring when they tell their stories. So when
Yeah.
somebody reads that in a book, AI just cannot replace that. It
Not at
just
all.
cannot replace honesty and your true voice, if I may.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
What a great name for a business.
Thank you. Yeah.
I don't want to step over this because there's
Sure.
probably people listening that have not read the Story Brand Guide. So can you explain what you mean by the guide and the hero? Because it's so important.
Yeah. So the biggest example that Donald Miller uses in his book is Star Wars. Like he talks about how all movies have a formula, right? You have a hero who has a problem, who comes across a guide who helps them solve their problem. I'm probably not doing it justice, but that's basically the
Doing great.
structure of it. Yeah. And I learned this in all my years as a content manager for a digital marketing agency. And I love stories, obviously, I'm a writer and I love this whole concept. So it was hard for us to get this concept across to our clients at the time, who are mostly lawyers who think they're the hero of everybody's story. But the point is, just like Obi-Wan Kenobi was the guide for Luke Skywalker. Luke had the problem. He finds Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I guess Yoda too. I'm not a big Star Wars fan, but I'm trying to remember all the characters. But they were the guides in the story that helped him overcome his problem or helped him fight his battles and be victorious. Just bringing it down to a functional medicine practitioner or whatever business you're in. You want to set yourself up as the guide, the trustworthy guide that your client needs to solve their problem. Really, you should approach every book, even in marketing, right? What's in it for me? From the reader standpoint, from your client standpoint, they want to know what's in it for me, but they also want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. So what better way to gain someone's trust than by being vulnerable, telling your story, sharing what you learned from that story and how you can help them. AI just can't replace that.
Not at all. They can fake it, but it's not authentic. And I'm really glad that we got there and you explained that, because when it comes to being an attorney or a doctor or nurse practitioner, when you have that skill set that you can solve somebody's problem, it does feel like you are the hero. And it's
Yes.
not even like egotistical. It's more like, I know you have a problem, patient, and
Yes.
I can take care of you. So let me tell you how wonderful I am so that you trust me. So therefore I can take care of you. And that just doesn't
Yeah.
work. It doesn't work on websites. It doesn't work on blogs. It doesn't work in books. It doesn't work in emails. The story brand methodology really does need to get filtered into all the content. So speaking of other
Wonderful.
content, do you do other content for your
I
clients
do.
or just books? So tell us
Yes.
about that.
Yeah, so I do SEO optimized blogs, and there's really an art to that too. And not just AI, but with keywords. You don't want it to sound like you sit with keywords, but they need to be in there. The focus keyword, the cluster keyword, which involves like the research. And one thing I want to say about that too is in my previous life as a content manager, a lot of clients would read their blog, they'd review their blog and say, we gave away too much information. This is another thing I want to share. Teach generously. That's another important aspect, whether it's a book, a blog, a web page, whatever it is. Your competitors are doing that. The information is out there, so you need to be out there too, except your blogs are going to be SEO optimized properly. so that they show up on page 1 of Google and your ideal client or patient can find you. But it would always kind of amaze me when people would say, you gave away too much information. The point is to give away enough information to, one, set you up as the guide, and two, make the person realize, oh my gosh, I can't write a will myself, just to
Right.
use a lawyer
Right.
example, an estate planning example. It just amazes me how people are just, they want to be so stingy with the information. And I'm like, you cannot set yourself up as an authority without sharing information.
I think it's just fear and the unknown.
Yeah.
Alex Hormozzi, who I absolutely adore his podcast, and he always says that you want to give all the information so that you set them up for the next problem. So the more
Right.
somebody knows, now then you're almost guiding them towards what that next problem is, which only you can solve. So if
Yes.
you're listening and you are afraid to give away too much, that's how you do it. You share all you know so that the patient says to themselves, oh, now I understand, but I can't fix that. So I need you to go and fix that for me.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
what's next for you? So you've got this book out, you're working on a few others, you've got, ghostwriting clients.
Yeah.
Where are you taking True Voice?
I'm aligned with Michelle Culp, who is the founder of the Best-Selling Author Program. It's great to write a book and hire a ghostwriter like me who can write a book, but then you want to make sure that you're getting it out there because most of the people we work with are independent authors.
Mhm.
So Michelle is a book publicist where she helps people get to bestseller on Amazon. I mean, she knows the keywords, the categories to use, all these little tricks. I'm not going to give away her secrets, but I don't even know some of them actually. But when you hire Michelle, you also get me, whether it's a ghostwriter or whether you just need it, whether you have a full manuscript that just needs editing. And then her packages include cover design, formatting, which is also very, very important. It has to do with how the book looks, whether it has bullets and the text and all of those things. And that's really important. Visual.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So-
People won't read ugly, cluttered books that they can't read with natural eye.
Yeah, exactly. And even with blogs too, you need to do that. The formatting is super important. So Michelle and I are aligned. We also did the Tiny Book Challenge, where we're
What's that?
going to be running this well, maybe not December, but every month I think we're going to try to run it. Basically, it's a 4-week course where Michelle teaches people how to write a tiny book, which is defined as between 25 and 75 pages. Believe it or not, it's a thing on Amazon. I never knew it. People the more you write, the more money you can make. And it's also a way for people who are maybe stuck to get started. And maybe that tiny book turns into a larger book later.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of fun. And 1 week I taught the course and I actually got a tiny book out. Books Mean Business, which is just out on Amazon right now in Kindle. It'll be out in paperback on Monday, but it talks about how writing a book with authenticity is the way to go in the age of AI. That's what really drives business growth. People really want authenticity, and I do have sources in there that support that premise. So we're doing that. And I also have my podcast, True Voice Unfiltered, which I'm hoping to bring you on soon, Jody.
I would love to. So everybody needs to go and subscribe to her because Darian's wonderful to listen to.
Thank you. And I interview, all kinds of people. I mean, authors, doesn't have to be functional medicine. I mean, I'd love to interview people that are in that space. But I mean, I had a wonderful guest on recently who talked about Ho'oponopono. It's this Hawaiian philosophy and just way of being that helps people overcome PTSD. It was a fascinating interview.
Oh, wow.
And she was a fascinating guest because she was once a conventional nurse, many years ago.
Oh, I got to go look at that show.
Eileen Gottlieb, her name is. She's wonderful, wonderful woman. So, anybody that has a story worth telling, worth sharing, and also for listeners, I want it to be a channel worth listening to that's going to share valuable information. I actually had a guest too, Mark Weathers, who talked about cybersecurity and what to look for and how to avoid certain things because there are people out there that unfortunately are still victimized by these predators. He shared a lot of practical tips about what you can do to avoid it. Anything that's uplifting, informative, educational, and
sounds like your podcast is almost like a little PhD. Like you can learn all sorts of stuff under the umbrella of how to write a book.
Yeah, I bring on a lot of smart people, so
That's
it's
awesome.
fun. I love learning, and also people who are like me that really want to make a difference.
If someone wants to reach out to you, how do they do so?
They can visit my website, truevoicewritingservices.com. There's a contact button there, or at Daria Anne at truevoicewritingservices.com. Very easy. And then all my social media stuff is there. But just reach out to me there and I'll get back to you. And anybody that wants to be a guest too on True Voice Unfiltered, please reach out to me. I'm always looking for great guests.
Fantastic. I will make sure all that's in the show notes. It's been so much fun talking to you. Before we go, and if you've listened to any of the shows, I do this. So my favorite podcast, I listen to a lot of podcasts, but my favorite is The Diary of a CEO, Steve Bartlett.
I love that.
He's the greatest interview and he gets the most amazing guests. But he always ends his show by asking the guest a question that the last guest asked, but they don't know who you are. So I have
Okay.
a question for you
Okay.
from my last guest. And the question is, what is the most exciting place you've visited and what impressed you about it?
Oh my gosh. The most exciting place I visited and what impressed. Oh my goodness, Jody. Wow. I'm really on the spot now. Um, Exciting. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm going to say St. Augustine, Florida, because the first time I went there, and I've been there multiple times, I just got such a feeling of just peace, and it's very spiritual, and just the history that's there. When I was walking through like that downtown area where they still have like the cobblestone
Yeah.
streets and the mission area too, with the little chapel that was, I think, the first chapel in the United States. I don't know. I got such a sense of history, but also I found it to be very peaceful and beautiful. Like the architecture is absolutely beautiful. Just very interesting place where some bad things happened too. But I don't know, it just brings history alive to me when I was there for the first time. It really made such an impression. And I recommend everybody when they ask me about places to go in Florida, that's always at the top of my list.
I love that. I've been several times, but the first time I went was with my daughter's class when she was in the seventh grade. And we visited the fort and did all of the historical stuff. And you're right. It really just has kind of a grounding feeling to the
Yeah.
city. Oh, that's so
Yeah.
cool.
My
Well,
favorite
I
place.
can't thank you enough. We haven't seen each other in
Way too long.
probably years. Yeah. So thank you so much. You reached out and I really appreciate you doing that. And again, thank you for the book.
Oh, thank you, Jody.
I really encourage all providers to read this because what I got a sense of when I was reading it was what the provider doesn't see.
Yeah.
So even providers that spend an hour with their patients, which a lot of hormone providers and functional medicine do, they spend a lot of time. You don't share all of this. And I think all providers should know what's going on in the back of the brain of their patients. So thank you for
Oh,
for writing this book and sharing it with me. And everybody needs to go get it. My Escape from the Sick Care System.
yes.
And we'll see you on your podcast.
Yes, sounds great, Jody. Looking forward to it. And thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for listening to Beyond Hormones, the business of wellness. I hope that you're walking away with fresh ideas and real strategies you can use to grow your practice with profit and purpose. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow the show so you never miss a conversation. And if something you heard today resonated with you, do me a favor, share this episode with a friend or a colleague. It's one of the best ways you can support the show, and it might be exactly what they need to hear right now. If you want even more tools and support, go ahead and head over to acceleratedmedicalpractices.com. Until next time, keep doing the work that matters. Your patients need you, and I am cheering you along every step of the way.